Well, what do you do if you feel like your life is heading in the wrong direction? Our next guest answers that question head on in her new book, Called Out: Why I Traded Two Dream Jobs for a Life of True Calling. And she joins us now. Welcome, ABC News reporter Paula Farris. Paula, good to have you.
Thank you. It's so good to be on the show, Jenna. I really appreciate it.
So in your book, you open up about the challenging time that made you really have to reassess where you were headed and your calling. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, Jenna, I was just doing what society told me to do, to lean in hard. And that's almost always synonymous with doing and with career. And so, I worked really hard. I rose the ranks at ABC fairly quickly. I was the weekend anchor of Good Morning America Weekend Edition, co-hosted The View. And I was at this professional high, but this personal low. And I really, I felt like my personal life was falling apart around me. Yes, I was at a professional high at the height of my career, but I looked around, Jenna, and the landscape around me was on fire. My relationships were suffering with my husband, with my kids, with God. I wasn't attending church regularly because I couldn't due to my schedule. My health started to suffer. And I felt this stirring in my spirit that God really wanted me to take a step to the side, but I challenged him at first and I said, "But didn't you call me to do this? This is my calling. I'm walking in my calling. Look, I'm doing this all for you." And it wasn't until I went through a season of hell, which I write about in the book. And Jenna, within 7 months, I felt a little like Job. I experienced five major events. I had a miscarriage with an emergency surgery. And then I suffered a concussion at work through a very freak accident where someone threw an object at my head right before I was going live for Good Morning America. The day I got cleared to go back to work after being knocked out from the concussion, I get in a head-on car crash. That's incident number three. Incident number four is influenza, and then I developed pneumonia. So that was five incidents or major events within 7 months of my life. And I said, "Okay, God, I understand you want me to slow down because my professional and personal choices are clashing with my professed values and my family's getting my leftover. So, as crazy as this sounds to me, as crazy as this sounds to everybody else, I'm going to step away from these two dream jobs. I'm going to step away from Good Morning America weekends anchoring, and I'm going to step away from The View." And then in that space, Jenna, I realized I had no idea who I was outside of my job. My identity and my purpose was in career, was in work, was in vocation, was in this calling on my life. And that's where a lot of the book picks up, is this misplaced significance in finding our worth and our identity and our purpose in things that move and shift, like vocation. But something that we're all experiencing right now in this pandemic, where we realize we've misplaced our significance in things and we're experiencing loss at such a visceral level on a multiple areas, whether it's job or dwelling or family that we're losing to the crisis. So, God allowed me this personal crisis to kind of reset and then really discover unshakable, unrootable calling and purpose on my life that don't shift in a personal crisis and don't shift in a pandemic. And I feel like, yes, we're experiencing loss, but God's also given us an opportunity to reset, to
Yeah.
reassess our priorities right now.
Paula, do you think this coronavirus pandemic is sort of that wake-up call that you write about in your book? You write, so many of us have found our identity in the wrong things, and so God uses a good crisis to wake us up from time to time. Do you see this pandemic as maybe one of those situations?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not a prophet or a prophetess, but I do know that God does allow things to happen in our life to get our attention. And if we don't slow down long enough, He's going to go to whatever lengths He has to get our attention. God didn't get my attention initially when, even though I knew my life was falling down around me and my relationships were suffering and my health started suffering and my kids were getting my leftovers and my husband was getting my leftovers. I went through that personal crisis. And I think that God's going through great lengths. So this is an opportunity for all of us to just say, do I feel off? Have I misplaced my significance? Have I said one thing but actually done another? And that's where I was. I had to really eat a plate of crow for all intents and purposes. I had to grovel. There were moments, so many moments of humility where I said, I had proclaimed for the longest time, Jenna, that I wasn't defined by what I did. I was defined by who I was, a wife, child of God, a mother. And then when the rubber met the road and I stepped away from what I did, something I didn't think defined me, well, guess what? It had. But it had to
Yeah.
be taken away from me in order for me to realize that.
Paula, if someone were to ask you today, what do you see as your true calling now?
I do. What I see as my true calling, first of all, it's a word we throw out all the time, Jenna, isn't it? And we
Hmm.
lean in, but it's so packed with career. It's like married to career, calling career, value, vocation, worth, work. What God really revealed to me in this season, where I write a majority of the book, is that we have these two callings on our life. We have a faith calling, which is our purpose on this earth. It is why we are here, and it will never move. It will never shake. It will never be uprooted when there's a pandemic or a personal crisis. It's who you are. For me, it is to love God and love people. A personal crisis is never going to shake that. A pandemic will never shake loving God and loving people and why I'm here. My vocational calling will change. Okay. And my vocational calling, yes, well, it's what I do. It's the vehicle. I see it now as the vehicle by which I will love God and love people. It's the conduit. It's going to change. Expect it to change. Allow God to branch out, to not see yourself so one dimensionally. So it's who you are, your purpose, unshakable, unrootable, never changing, loving God and loving people. And your vocational calling is just the way by which you'll fulfill that, to love God and love people. So it's not, your identity is not rooted in doing anymore. Your
Hmm.
identity is rooted in loving God and loving people. The way that you'll do that uniquely with your gifts and talents, and God can use you in a myriad of capacities based on your gifts and talents. Don't think of yourself as just a broadcaster or just a teacher or just an engineer. um, Peel back those layers. God gave us each layers. I don't view myself anymore as just a broadcaster. I say I'm someone who's curious. I am a questioner. I am dogged, and I will champion people. And guess what? God can use that in a myriad of different ways on a myriad of different branches. But I just have to remember what I'm doing and who I'm doing it for. It's not about me. It's about doing it for God and allowing people to see the love of God through me and through what I'm doing.
Yeah. The book, once again, is called out Why I Traded Two Dream Jobs for a Life of True Calling. It is chocked full of wisdom. Paula Farris with ABC News, thank you and congratulations.
Thank you very much. And thank you for supporting the book. I never thought I'd write one. The joke is, I'm an open book, just never thought I'd write one. But I really do feel like, God gave me this message, and I hope it blesses and encourages and really equips people.
I think it will, definitely. All right, Paula, thank
Thank
you.
you, Jenna. Thank you. God bless.